Hello everyone, welcome to episode 31 of the Drunken Boxing podcast, coming to you from Beijing. We're just a couple of days away from Christmas, and this will be the last podcast released for the year of 2021. Let's get right into it. Hanwei Forge produces not only Chinese-style swords and weaponry, but they also produce Japanese swords as well as European types. They are meticulous about their products and have a high standard of quality that they adhere to, which sets them apart from many such companies. They range from basic entry-level items all the way to exquisite collector's pieces. You may view their products at their official website, which is hanweimetal.com. While the website is in Chinese, it is quite self-explanatory, and the general manager, Mr. Gilbert Poon, can speak English and is highly accommodating to customers. So, if you have any queries or would like to contact them for an order, you may do so by email at gilbertpoon@hanweimetal.net. The links are in the show notes and description. Moving on to some Mushin martial culture news. I've released a few glimpses of lessons that are on the Huajin online learning program, so you can see some of the content and the method in which it is presented. I hope that gives you some insight into the program and its structure. Also, I released the final episode of the lecture series My Shifu, Di Guoyong, gave at the Peking University. Those of you interested in aspects pertaining to Xingyiquan and Baguazhang practice should check the entire series out. Okay, and following on from the Senki episode on Boch featuring my friend Lavelle Marshall, I released a second episode, this time featuring Ariella and Ayuntana, who are two pioneering ladies in the realm of Mongolian wrestling. They share their experiences and perspectives on their paths up until now. And just a couple of days ago, I released a Xingyi Jian, or straight sword, highlight video, which I filmed at a small temple, which is close to my home. I wanted to present some of the wonderful straight sword methods within the Xingyiquan system. Anyway, do check it out. As always, the various Mushin martial culture merchandise is available on my Teespring store. The newly released Spear, King of Weapons hoodies have been quite popular now during winter season. There are t-shirt versions available as well. If you feel like supporting this podcast indirectly, getting some of the Mushin martial culture merchandise is one way to do it. You can find the store at the link in the show notes. Another way to support this podcast, as well as all the Mushin endeavors, is through Patreon. There are general support tiers and a third tier, the Huajin tier, in which you can study the arts of Xingyiquan and Baguazhang in depth. There is already quite an extensive library of lessons on the arts, with additional lessons being released regularly. If you are interested in learning Xingyiquan or Baguazhang, give the course a try. The Patreon site may be found at patreon.com/Mushin Martial Culture. That's all one word, Mushin Martial Culture. Okay, let's get into today's episode. My guest today is Ilya Profatilov. I met Ilya a few years back in Moscow. He has had a very interesting and in-depth journey in both his personal practice of Chinese martial arts as well as with regards to research. And he is a pioneer in many aspects. Hailing from the former Soviet Union, Ilya is a sinologist and ethnographer who holds a degree in East Asian Studies and Chinese language. He started his studies of Chinese martial arts while still in the Soviet Union, and he then traveled to China after he graduated from university to study even deeper. He was particularly focused on Tanglang Quan, or Mantis Boxing, and initially studied under Ma Hanting, who passed away in 1997. Ilya then continued his studies of various types of Mantis Boxing under Wang Yuanqian, Lin Tanfang, and his son Lin Runzhu, as well as others. He founded the Jiaodong Martial Arts Preservation Project in 1997 to document and preserve the local martial arts of the Shandong Peninsula. The styles include Mantis Boxing, Ground Boxing, or Ditangmen, and Combat Staff Fencing, Lu He Gun. In 2010, Ilya began researching and searching for the Qing Dynasty historical techniques of pulling strong horn bows, lifting heavy examination stones, and heavy iron halberds. Ilya has ventured deep into territories seldom traveled by Westerners into the villages of Shandong to research and document Mantis Boxing and other practices. He continues to research, practice, and teach today. He has had an extremely interesting life in the pursuit of Chinese martial arts, and discussing this with him, as he recalled his experiences, was immensely interesting. He currently runs the Chong Tang Facebook group, should you be interested in finding out more about him and his endeavors. The link is in the show notes. So, without further delay, I give you Ilya Profatilov. Okay, welcome to the Drunken Boxing podcast, Ilya Profatilov. I'm very happy to have you on. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I'm very happy too to hear her.
Yeah. Where are you right now?
I am actually in Qingdao. I've been here for a couple of years since the COVID struck. So,
R-
yeah.
right. Yeah. So because I remember there was a period of time you weren't here, but you came back to Qingdao, right? It's been 2 years already. Wow, the time has really flown. And
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because you remember last time we met was in Moscow,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
after that, yeah, and then I went to the States for a while. I
R-
then came to China, and that's it. I'm
yeah,
here.
yeah. And how are things there in Qingdao? Is everything going all right there with the whole situation of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect control, and you know, does feel like anything is going on really.
Okay.
And I got a phone call from a friend in Guangzhou, like he got locked up in his school, like the entire school, the
Oh
kids.
shit.
So
Really?
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no. 2 weeks, huh? Probably something like that.
I don't know, just a father, one kid's father got COVID, maybe the Omicron,
Mm.
and sent the kid to school, and then they found out they locked the entire school with teachers and kids in a school.
They have to stay there,
So
huh?
I have no idea what's going on right now, but been like for 24 hours he was sitting there, I guess.
Shit.
I
Well,
don't know,
I
maybe they released them.
yeah, I was because of contact tracing. It wasn't me. It was somebody who lives. We live together. They went and ate at a restaurant, and they ate 2 days before that. Somebody was there who later came down positive. So they traced everybody who ate in the restaurant for 48 hours, and we had to isolate at home for 2 weeks. We weren't allowed to leave. So
Wow.
but anyway, this is
But
just how they're
but
dealing with it.
it works. It
It
works. The system works. That's what it is.
Exactly. So, I mean, at home it's a lot more, convenient.
Definitely.
You're just staying at
Yeah.
home, but
Definitely.
that's what they have to do to stop the spread. So that's that. Yeah.
Right. They've been doing great so far. I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
agree. All right.
uh,
So I mean, I met you in Moscow. We met through the Moscow Wushu Federation, and the European
right.
Federation was running some event there, and that's when I first met you, and we got to know each other. And your story is very
Right.
interesting. You've got quite a long history of practicing Chinese martial arts. You particularly focus on Tanglang Quan or Mantis Boxing, and it's something that you've deeply
Right.
researched. And so maybe you can introduce a little bit about yourself and your history and how it all began.
Well, it is. You're absolutely right. It's a long story. Started about, I don't know. The Manchester story started about 30 years ago. Um, but before that, I just grew up in Moscow, in the Soviet Union.
Mm.
Um, as a kid, did judo, and then did karate, and then karate was banned,
Oh,
and it went like underground and all that stuff. And so we did what we did, was just like whatever we could,
mm.
right? There was absolutely nothing. Then I ended up in the Soviet Army for 2 years. Um, uh, Served there, got out. Um, though, well, it was an interesting time for me.
That must have been interesting.
18. So, I was drafted when I was 18, and then got out of there when I was 20. Was demobilized. That was like lots of when I discovered that you have actually to when you live you're just by yourself there, right? And all
Mm.
that hazing going on, and you have to defend yourself 24/7 for the first year, pretty much.
Really?
Establish, yeah, yeah.
Mostly
So,
hazing, huh?
well, that's what Soviet Army is famous for, was,
Right.
and still is to a degree. The Russian Army is still going on there, but it's much better. I hope, still,
Yeah.
you know. But but there are lots of fights. Kind of like I didn't practice there. I mean, I did what I knew, right? And
Mm.
then we had guys like who did kickboxing or whatever they did. Some would judo, just sparred, fought. Mainly just fighting with other guys, right? Who don't like you. Um, but that just the first half a year, and then once you establish yourself, that's pretty good. You're pretty good.
Right.
Um, but so then I trained with guys, but no formal training there. But then I remember I was like the end of the second year, I was almost out, and there was a TV show and they allowed us to watch TV on Sundays, right? Sunday morning, right? Because there was special like Soviet Army related program every Sunday that would come out, and after that there was Around the World, another program, and there was a guy, at the time famous Russian sinologist, who was talking about martial arts, Chinese martial arts, wushu, and until before that I just I saw a little bit like photocopies of Hybridizer's books about kung fu and stuff, but really I just only I'd never seen anything, never heard of it. Never seen it personally. So I saw that guy jumping wearing like green that pajama silky suit, doing that Mantis performance, Mantis over high.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, right?
And that's what they put on. That's what they put on TV at that time. That's very interesting.
Yeah. It was summer of 1986.
Okay. Yeah. Very interesting.
And then after that, I was just jumping around wearing army boots and stuff, I was impressed. I was like, wow, that's cool. Right? Jumping around trying to imitate those moves, obviously. And I had no idea what was going on. Just kind of fun.
So that's where it started?
Yeah, that's why there was the first impression. I was like, wow, I really like that style, right? Just like the visual, the movement, right? Just like appreciated how the guy moved, right?
Did they show only Tanglang Quan that day, or did they show
No. It's one of those. You've seen that documentaries, like from the
this is
1980s.
kung fu. This is kung fu.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they show like White Crane and Transit ID and all that
right.
stuff. All that.
But Mantis is what grabbed your attention the most, huh? Already.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely was like that. I remember exactly that. I was like wearing, army uniform, obviously jumping around to trying to imitate what I just saw.
Yeah.
And then so I got out of the army, and then I went to the College of East Asian African Asian Studies of Moscow State University. Studied there, studied Chinese and Chinese history there for a period of time, right, till I graduated. And around my freshman year, I guess, there was the Nanbei Shaolin came out, right?
Yeah.
In Russia. And so obviously there was a Mantis there. I'm like, whoa, that's exactly what I want to do, right?
Yeah.
So and then a guy who was he was like what they did. It was like Gleb Muzrukov, right? And was another guy, Maslov, right? And that Maslov guy, there was like two founders of like late Soviet, early Russian, wushu. You know the whole story,
right?
So they did. They showed the movie, Nanbei Shaolin, Northern Southern Shaolin.
Northern South.
In a movie theater, North South, and I was put there as a translator, believe it or not, right? Like my freshman Chinese, right? The movie is in Chinese, the English subtitles, right? I have no idea what they're talking about because like half Guen and whatever was going on there. I was reading the subtitles, whatever I also could understand at the time. And, I made through. I went through a couple of those wonderful sessions. And then we performed whatever garbage we knew, like, self-made moves,
right.
nowhere to learn. So that was my second year at college. And then they invited a couple of guys from Beijing, from Shifan Xueyuan.
Okay. Normal university.
Two guys. Yeah. Which is Wang Jianhua and Zhou Zhihua. Two guys. So one of them taught Xingyi, Bagua, and others, right? And the Zhou Zhihua and Wang Jianhua taught, I think he taught Xingyi, and then he taught Mantis, right? And the Mantis that Yuhai, that Biaoyuan performance form, which I learned from him, and I was like, what the hell is this? And really, I like Mantis, right? But after I learned the form, I'm like, where is there's nothing practical about it.
So he showed you nothing. I mean, we know what the form is in terms of content, but do you think that the inability to demonstrate the practical well, whichever movements had some practical value in that whole
Right.
routine, was a result of him not understanding or him just not caring to teach them?
Well, the guy could fight for sure, but not Mantis wise, definitely. Like he had strong singing background.
Ah, okay.
And I met him later on. He still lived in that normal university, like in the 90s when I was studying at Beijing University. I met him once. We just hung out,
Yeah.
talked. And no, he was a good. He had definitely had kung fu in terms of he could use it.
Right.
And they were like, you never seen anything like this. Like 300, about 200 people like gathered on a stadium, right? And he was teaching. I don't remember what form, right? And everybody was learning from him. I was translating for him.
Yeah.
And that was pretty impressive. And then guys challenged him. And the Russian guys came and said, "Come on, dude. So let's see what you up. Do you know anything?
Right.
What if I punch you in the face? What are you gonna do?"
Yeah.
And then, he showed his techniques, right? But actually, people got like really excited. He said, "Well, let's fight." And he said, "Okay, I'll fight you, but if I kill you, that's your problem, right?" And the guys backed off a little bit. They didn't want to fight him.
Imagine it did happen and there was a fight. Do you think he would have been like, "Oh, damn it, my bluff didn't work"?
It could have happened, but the dude was good. He was good.
Yeah.
He was like solid built, and he had kung fu, he had techniques, particularly in Sinichan. Like forget about Mantis. I mean, he didn't know. He just learned the form.
So that's what it was. He was there teaching a form that he knew of Mantis. He wasn't really a Mantis practitioner.
Yeah.
Okay.
But eventually, I found out that he learned another form of Mantis, which is Meihua plum blossom Mantis, right? From my first teacher, Ma Hanting, years ago. But he was teaching that to a rival group in Moscow. Right?
Ah.
So I ended up learning this, performance stuff, but real Mantis like Meihua plum blossom form, I didn't learn because he just didn't teach.
Right.
That's it. So that's the first time I heard my first teacher's name, Ma Hanting. Right? That was the first time, and I obviously forgot about him. Right?
Yeah.
He just mentioned it. So I was teaching already, like teaching wushu there, like crowds of people. I didn't know what I was doing. Literally, I didn't know what I was doing. Like in retrospect, I mean, I could fight those guys with sparring and stuff, but I really didn't know what I was teaching.
Right.
Whatever garbage was coming out of me, it was not good. And then my third year at college, they sent me as exchange student to Beida, Beijing University. But before that, I had lots of contacts with Wushu guys from Harbin. So after I learned that Mantis form, right, I lost all interest in Mantis. I didn't want to learn that anymore. Like I was kind of disappointed with the whole situation. So I took likings of the Harbin guy came. He knew Bayo and he knew Tongbei, right? Tongbei Quan.
Tongbei Quan, yeah.
And I really like that Tongbei Quan because he showed a few applications, seemed pretty practical to me.
Right.
And a few moves, and I did that for a while with him, and I wanted to learn it. So when I went to Beijing University, my goal was to go to that New Jie, right? And find Bayo and Tongbei teachers there.
Yes.
So when I arrived, before that I went to China a couple of times before that trip. Right?
Well, maybe I should add something just so the listeners know. New Jie in Beijing is in the southern district of Beijing, and it's famous as a Muslim area. Even up until today, it's still got that legacy of being a Muslim.
Hui nationality.
Yeah,
right?
the Hui Muslim group lived there for a very long time, and many of them practiced, amongst other things, Baiyuan and Tongbei Quan, which some of the more well-known practitioners were there. They were living there, so.
Right, and also very good at wrestling too.
Yes. Yeah, the southern part of Beijing was very, very commonplace to. Wrestling was one of their main pastimes down there. I mean, martial arts was a pastime for many of the people. People think that it's like, you just go and study martial arts. They don't think that it's part of the daily life, the daily occurrence in China, especially older China and in the South. People would wrestle after work in the evenings, after school. In the mornings, they would practice and martial arts, and this was just how life was. So, sorry, I just wanted to add that because I'm sure there's people thinking, "What's this? New Jersey? What's in New Jersey? No, New Jie, yeah." So
yeah, it's called Cow Street.
Cow Street, and that's actually where I still buy a lot of my lamb from there. So
Yep.
yeah.
It was a nice place before they rebuilt the whole thing.
Yeah. Now it's a bit too gimmicky. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to do. Yeah, that's what it was like. Tumbei was the thing. I was ready to learn Tumbei.
Yeah.
And at Beida, Beida is like fairly close to the sports university.
Yes, Peking University, close to the sports university. Yeah.
So I went there and I saw guys, and they did show the performance, so I wasn't impressed much. I met one guy. He asked for too much money, being like poor Soviet student. There's no way I could afford it. So I like, whatever, I can't do it. Beida, Peking University had a couple also wushu guys there.
Yeah.
Didn't impress me, so whatever. I just like, and then eventually I was frustrated, because people like offering me, like giving me, like they're telling me like huge, and they want to charge a lot. They see Lao Wai, they see like bank in front of them,
they
and
see dollar signs.
Entire retirement is laid out in front of them, like all their life. So I kind of didn't like that. So
yeah,
I gave up on the idea for a while, for a month, and then I called those Harbin guys that I was hanging out in Russia for back then, Soviet Union. And I said, come on, I help you there. You help me. Let's use our guanxi.
Yeah.
And the guy said, he said, all right, there will be a tournament. It was 1991. For fall of 91. It was in Beijing in the sports arena, the Dongzhumen, by the zoo over there.
Yeah.
And he said, come, meet me, and I'll introduce you to Mantis people.
Was it Dongzhumen? Was it Dongzhumen where the Tanglang Quan is the expo center?
Yeah. There was, I don't know if there is that's a big stadium. Oh, not big, but at the time it was a big stadium.
Yeah, it's still an expo center today. And it's quite interesting because actually Li Ziming used to teach outside of there way back in the day in like a parking kind of open area there. And Ma Chuanshu also, before he passed away, was teaching in that area, still carrying on from where Li Ziming.
Oh, that's cool.
Because it's close to the zoo, it's close to Zizhuyan Park. It's that side of the world. Yeah.
Yep. So I went, and I went there to the stadium, right? Lots of foreigners came. Like international teams, one from Moscow came as well, but I didn't see them. What I saw is De Qian, the Shaolin monk, right? Remember?
Yeah.
Who wrote like 5 billion books on Shaolin Chuan. So I saw that guy. He was standing there, and he was really hard, like working real hard, trying to sell his Shaolin Chuan to me, like trying to convert me into this whole Shaolin thing.
Yeah.
I'm like talking to him, listening to him. All right, whatever. And then all of a sudden, my friend comes. His name was Chong, right, from Harbin. Dongbei people, they have.
Yeah.
They're straightforward.
Very straightforward. Way, right? Yeah.
So he came and said, "Who's this?" He said, well, "Get out of here," to the Dechen. And with Zhang was Malay, Ma Hanting son. Okay. And Malay was, at the time, he was an officer in Chinese Guangzhou, right?
Right, public security. Yeah.
So it was fairly big, but he was, I think he was doing the Sanda.
Yeah.
He was a judge there. So he looked at the Malay and he said, with who was drunk, he said, "Get out of here!" And the Tang looked at him, right? And the Tang ran away. Literally, he ran away. I've never seen anything like this. I was like, "Whoa." So then Chong introduced Malay to me. He said, "Oh, this guy is he's super duper Mantis dude. He'll teach you." And Malay looked at me and said, "I can't teach you, man. I'm part of this, this whole national security bureau system. I have no time. I'm way too busy. But I have 70-year-old father. Would you like to train with him?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, definitely." And so he said, "I'll find you." He said, "I'll find you." I said, "Okay." So about half a month later, I was in my dorm in Beida. And all of a sudden, the entire dorm was like freaking out because all this cleaning ladies, like all the Chinese stuff was running around like crazy, right? It was like, Gonanju guy came, right? Everybody was terrified, right?
Because a public security
Well,
officer
he
came.
he came wearing his uniform, everything, right? So he knocked on the door. It was like, we talked, and he said, "All right, so I'm a busy guy, you're going to meet me and my father, on Saturday, right across from Gugong, on Tiananmen, on the other side of Tiananmen."
Right, across from the Forbidden City, on the other side of Tiananmen, yeah.
Right across from Mao Zedong's mausoleum.
Yeah.
Right? That's where we're going to meet you. Come. I said, "Okay." And I had my friend as well, because he wanted to do it. We used to spark together a lot.
A Russian guy?
A Russian guy from my college.
Okay.
My roommate. We lived together in the dorm. So Russians are notoriously late, right? As you know. So but it wasn't our fault, right? There was traffic jams here, there.
Yeah.
We were late. I'm not kidding. 2.5 hours.
Oh my God.
So when we arrived, I had no hope I thought nobody's going to be there, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I saw Malay and I saw Ma Hanting. They're standing there waiting patiently, right?
Wow.
So the whole thing happened is Malay said, "Okay, so he says, Ilya, this is my father, right? Father, this is Ilya. Ilya wants to learn with you. Right, okay, bye." So he jumped on a motorcycle, on a bike, and took off, right?
That's the introduction.
That's it. That was the whole spiel. And all right. So Ma Hanting said, "Okay, let's go. Let's find a place to train." Okay, with my friend. So we got on the bus, right, and the bus took us directly to Andingmane.
Okay.
So he was sitting there. I was standing in the bus. It was quite crowded. So we arrived and then we went to he lived in Andingmane, but we went to Dithan, the Temple of Earth.
Yeah,
right?
Temple of Earth.
And got out of there, and he was walking in front of me, right? For us, two of us, right? We're walking. He was in front of us, walking he didn't say a word. All that, it took about an hour to get there. He didn't say a word, right? Nothing. So we walked all the way through those gates into the park. And then he turned around. He said, "Okay, let's find a quiet place so nobody can see us." Right? I'm like, "Okay, all right." So we walked around, and we didn't really try to. He just walked directly where he wanted to teach me.
Right.
And it was a spot. Now it's all restored and beautiful grass grows there. You can't train there. It's by the wall, by the temple wall, the inside. And he said, "All right, so I said, Shuhu," I said, "I want to learn Tumbei." He said, "Okay." He said, "I'll teach you Tumbei." He said, "I'll teach you Tumbei, but show me what you can." So I showed him whatever that Yuhai form, Mantis form, because I knew that he's Mantis guy, right?
Yeah.
So I showed him that Yuhai Mantis form, and he was like, "Yeah, you suck," pretty much. That's what he said. You're no good.
We need to start all over. That's the usual thing that they say. That's terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all wrong. We need to start from the beginning again.
The guy was 70 years old. He was born in 1920.
Right.
He went through this the entire 20th century. He's seen it.
Seen it all.
He's seen it all. And his grandpa was imperial doctor. So he was like, I mean, I had suspicions. I heard from my brothers in Beijing, Mantis brothers, that maybe he was a Manchu
Hmm.
nationality, but he hid it, right? Because he was not Huizu, right? He
Yeah, with the
wasn't
name
Ma.
Ma though. Yeah. So
Right, right. So he definitely was that. So another choice is because Manchu also had last name Ma,
yeah,
and because his grandfather was imperial physician. I mean, this kind of put two things together,
it's a
and he
problem.
lived within the city walls, right?
Right.
Because all Hanzu lived outside. Only Manchu people were allowed, and
Yes.
Huizu as well inside.
Yes.
Like,
So he was definitely his grandfather was probably a bannerman. If he was living within the
probably, definitely.
compound, if he was living within
Hmm.
the compound, he most definitely was a bannerman.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, definitely. But throughout all the turbulence, history, and cultural revolution and stuff, he didn't want to talk about this stuff.
right.
Plus, he was a Gomindang officer in the
Ah, okay,
1940s
okay,
during the war. So, and then his entire class, his year converted. They all became communists, and he went to fight Gomindang.
right,
Like the entire what the military academy in Beijing.
right.
So obviously, in 1966, it all came back to him.
Hmm.
Uh, so we found that place, right? And then he said, "Okay, I'll teach you." And then I did it. He said, "Oh, you suck." I said, "All right, Shifu, I suck. I agree." But then I was like impatient. I was like, "Come on, Shifu, teach me. I want to learn Tumbei, right? I'll learn anything, whatever you show me, right? But I want to do that Tumbei thing.
Yeah.
I really love Tumbei." He looked at me and he said, all right, I'll teach you Tumbei, but first you learn Mantis. Once you're done with Mantis, I'll teach you Tumbei." I said, "Yes, Shifu."
Okay.
Right, and then I started learning Mantis, all the way till now, right?
So you never finished the mantis to get to the Tongbei, huh?
I finished the Mantis, but Tumbei never
Never arrived.
never came back from any direction. I went to that New Jia, right? That
Yeah.
that Bayou Tumbei area. I met with old masters there, but and I never went further than that. You
Okay.
know, just Mantis became a passion of mine, and
Sure.
I guess he knew what he was doing.
Mm.
And he was a professional wushu and
Yeah.
he wasn't like recreational guy who had just job and that was his like weekend activity. No, he was the guy with who been together doing all these things in the 50s, reforming wushu. He was part of the whole.
Mm.
Um, all that the reformation of wushu from 1930s until 1980s, he was part of it, right?
Right.
When he could, right? When he wasn't fighting, when he wasn't at war, when he wasn't persecuted in Cultural Revolution, he was doing wushu. That was his life.
Yeah.
Um, so, and yeah, it's a profound experience, a profound influence on me, really.
Right.
Uh, he was quite a figure out there in terms of his skills. I mean, I've met a few guys like in 30 years, like I was mainly visiting Mantis guys, right? I
Mm.
don't talk about other styles, but I can like name you like the handful of masters who actually can use it and fight, really.
Right.
Out of all these people I visited, over a couple, 200, over 200 people for sure, right?
Yeah.
Only five. That's not a lot.
That's
Definitely
definitely.
not a
That's, I
lot.
mean, that's like 2%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And most of them, the guys were doing it professionally, obviously, right? Not as a recreational activity, but
Yeah.
those were, I met those two. They were pretty good too. So I practiced with Ma Hanting and I did Mantis. I learned from him for 2 years, and then I went to Taiwan.
Okay.
I went to Taiwan because I wanted to do Taoist studies, which I tried but failed miserably because I didn't speak Minnan Hua or Taiwan Hua,
Right.
Taiwanese. There was a Celestial Masters teacher because the one of the Celestial Master that moved from mainland to Taiwan in 1949,
Mm.
right? Eventually he died, right? And his son, who became the next Celestial Master, he didn't know the rituals. He didn't know anything,
Oh
right?
no.
So the guy who taught him, right? His name was Chen. He passed away too recently. He knew the whole system, right? So I wanted to learn from him
Mm.
the Taoist ritual. Um, and I went to Taiwan to meet him, talk to him. He said, "Yeah, I'll teach you all this stuff, right?" But we couldn't talk to him. Like we couldn't communicate. We wrote characters. His wife spoke a little bit of Mandarin, right? So she helped us. But there was like what I gathered is that if I want to learn from him, right, I need to learn Minanhua,
Right.
Taiwanese, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, he's not going to teach me. So I went back to Taipei and I bought a bunch of tapes back
To
then.
learn?
To learn, yeah.
Okay.
Just like cassette tapes, to listen to Minanhua, and then obviously never learn because nobody knows how many tones they have there. They still don't know. Maybe 9, maybe 10. You never know.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
yeah.
You know, my first,
Yeah.
my high school that I attended, it was originally it's a Chinese high school, but it was originally set up at that time in South Africa under the Taiwanese consulate.
Uh-huh.
So I grew up with a lot of friends that were Taiwanese, and of course they speak Minnan. They speak Mandarin, of course, in school, but
Right.
amongst themselves, and they speak Minnan, and so I picked up a lot of it when I was younger because of growing up with them and being with them. But I must say since I've been in Beijing and with all of that, I don't remember much of it except for the bad words, which is normal. But yeah, it's
Right.
not an easy
That's the first thing
dialect.
you learn, right? I
Yeah,
mean, if you want to survive.
it's the first thing you learn and the last thing you forget. So yes,
Exactly.
but it's not an easy dialect for sure. So
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. So for you it wasn't easy, but for me it was like completely incomprehensible. I couldn't learn that. It was like way too much. Plus I didn't have a teacher either, so
yeah.
and I don't know, didn't have that much drive because Mantis was kind of taking over my hobbies and interests.
What
But I
what
did learn
mantis were
Mantis.
you learning just for interest sake, so the listeners can have a
In Taiwan, with Ma Hanting. Ma Hanting told me, a couple of years when I went to Taiwan, he said, quite a bit, right?
yeah
He said, this is a traditional practice of Fang Yu. You have to visit friends, right? You visit friends, you learn, you meet, and you take the best of what they can teach you,
yeah
right? If they're willing to, and that's how traditionally all these kung fu guys excelled in this. They through experience,
yeah
So you go there, you talk to all different masters, right? Sometimes they like you, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they fight you, sometimes they don't.
yeah
It all depends, right? But the more you see people, the more experience you get, the better you become eventually. That was
yeah
a traditional way of doing things.
mm,
And he said, you only go to Taiwan, visit guys, right?
mm,
And then later on, he gave me people's addresses of Six Harmonious Mantis people and Haojia people and Qingdao and Longkou here in Shandong
right
to visit too. And he sent me on that whole, whatever I've been doing for 25 years, running around
yeah
trying to figure out the history of Mantis and the roots of Mantis.
mm,
He told me to do that, and he said, if you don't come back, well, I wouldn't be, there wouldn't be big problem. But I knew that he knew that I would always come back, right?
mm,
Because he had real gung fu. He was like
right
gaoshou
yeah
from all perspectives, right? And cultural and just like the pinnacle of traditional
right
Chinese gentleman of 1930s, 1940s, where he was in 1950s. That's what he was. He was formed as a human being
right
overall, and it was pretty amazing. So I always came back, obviously. So in Taiwan, I went. I tried to propagate his style there,
mm,
and I did. I wrote like 4 articles there, and I published his book there as well
mm,
on 18 kinds of weapons in Taipei at the time.
wow
And I also went to in Taipei. I went to Babu 8 Steps Experimenters
yeah
guy.
that's quite popular in Taiwan, right?
Yeah. It was a nice style.
mm,
So I learned a little bit, exchange things with one of the teachers there, Zhou Fu. He was a great guy. Love him
mm,
dearly. The first day I came to his school, he's like, "So what? What do you want?" And there's a bunch of Japanese guys there, mainly learning from him, right? It's also Taiwanese, but mainly Japanese. It was popular in Japan at the time.
Yeah.
So he's like, "So what are you?" I said, "No, I learned this is Taiji Meihua Tanglang from Ma Hanting." Obviously, he never heard of him.
Yeah.
In Beijing, he said, "Okay, let's see what you do." He's one of the few guys who just like stood up and he said, "Okay, let's see what you can do."
Right.
I'm like, "All right." So let's spar. So we went at it, right? Like for, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 seconds, no more than that. All right. I threw him on the mats, and the whole Japanese guy like,
Oh.
Shifu fell down, right? And lost his face, but he didn't. He got up. He said, "Let's do it again." So we did it again, and he kicked me in the nuts. Yeah, that was pretty painful. So we stopped, and then he's okay. Now let's go drink tea. So I was like, by doing that, he didn't lose his face.
Of course.
Students,
Of course.
right? So we went to had tea, and then after that, I just learned from him. He was a cool guy. I really liked him. So he was one of the last students of Wei Xiaotang, who was the founder of 8 Step Experimenters.
Yeah.
Who lived here in Shandong in Qixia County. Eventually, I went and I found his relatives, and because Zhou Xinfu told him that go and find his relatives and then establish that contact between them, the villagers, and him, and that Wei Xiaotang, because he didn't have a family. He left his wife and children here. In Shandong, and he just went there by himself. So eventually, I went there. It was 2000, the year 2000 or 1999, one of those years. And that was one of the first village trips. And it was pretty impressive. The guys there still do that 8-step Mantis.
Wow.
And they have his book there, and I they cherish his memory. So then I sent the information to Zhou Xinfu, and that was it.
Yeah.
Then I went to Taichung, which is in the middle of Taiwan.
Yeah. I've been there.
Middle of the island. And I studied some, Mantis, the 3 mountains of Layang, 3 like Sunshine, Layang, Sunshine. Layang is a county here in Shandong. Sunshine is 3 mountains. So those guys had character Shine Mountain in their first names. Right?
Okay.
So one was the Likun Shan, another was Wang Yu Shan, another one was Huishu Shan, 3 of them.
Right.
So in Taiwan, I learned from Likun Shans who went to Taiwan with the Kuomintang army and stayed there, obviously. And I learned from his student, Li Hunjie. Right. I learned from him Neigong body conditioning of that particular Meihua Mantis, but they call it 7-star Mantis. But that's a very long story.
Wow.
We don't have enough time to discuss why it happened.
Right.
But that's how they call it. So I learned Neigong very good, like body conditioning and stuff, and old school or Taoist from. Eventually, I find out it's like from Laoshan Mountains here, or Taoist, like when the traditional Taoist pre-meditational purification practices were transferred to martial arts, which is Mantis Boxing, the local styles, into the villages and just stayed there. Taoists were gone. All this Neidan Shu internal alchemy was gone, but the practices that precede that survived in Mantis Boxing.
That's very interesting.
Cool. Yeah.
So you say it's premeditative
purification methods, and body conditioning, definitely, because sitting in the cave and doing crazy things when you're in your head, you have to be eating like pretty much nothing. You have to be physically fit to do that.
Yeah,
definitely. Otherwise, you're gonna kick the bucket for sure.
Yeah, but there's also another side which is quite interesting, because I've heard of this from a lot of the guys that do some of the more severe Tibetan practices where they seal themselves off for a period of time. And and part of the problem is not really the food or the isolation; it's that they sometimes go a little bit crazy. And
right.
And I'm pretty sure that some of these practices are not just simply connected to the physical aspect, but because of the risk of literally going crazy. I mean, that's one of the risks.
Definitely. And that's how they combine things together. The meditation and then use this, the meditation and this, and bring themselves up to and kind of nourishing from a different perspective.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because you have to nourish your body. That yang shen is not an unknown concept, right?
Yeah.
It's just part of the Neigong. That's what it was. So Mantis had that and still has it. So I learned first part from him, and the last part I eventually learned here in Shandong, but that's later. So I learned like a couple of forms from him, and now I'm doing research in the villages here, which is I find old masters, villages that practice exactly the same thing that he taught me,
Wow.
35 years ago in Taiwan. Right, so that's pretty interesting.
That's very
That
interesting.
connection.
And it would be something that's not very publicly seen or known. So
No, none of that is known to anyone, pretty
Yeah.
much, except for like tight circles of people that actually practice
yeah,
that. And that was the pre-Mantis level of martial arts of Chinese boxing of Shandong Peninsula. Because the different layers, Mantis didn't just form
suddenly.
in one spot at once or suddenly and then stayed the same throughout. Right? It's stupid. That didn't happen that way, right?
It's amazing how people think, and there's so many. I mean, the majority of the Chinese martial arts stories are like that. This guy saw this and made this boxing. No, that's
Right.
nothing happened like that. Nothing.
And we do exactly the same stuff that he did. Of course, definitely
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a very naive way to look at it. I mean, we get it even with other things. I mean, for example, you'll hear about the styles of Chinese wrestling. This is just an example. And
exactly.
and people will say something like they created it to focus on this. No, it wasn't the focus first. It usually just evolved into something like that. It wasn't. And there were there were reasons either directly connected to their life or their environment that caused that evolution. It wasn't so much like, I have an idea, we're going to do this now. It's a very naive way to look at these practices. So
Exactly. But it's part of tradition. So
Yeah.
most of folks choose to believe that.
Yeah.
And you can't blame people for the teacher, they leave that teacher. Adore that guy, right?
Right.
And the guy says things happen this way, right? And of course you believe that, right?
Yeah.
You believe that. But I'm just trained historian of Chinese history, and I back in the Soviet Union, so I believe my teachers, obviously, right? But I want to double check because I want to know for myself, right? What actually happened.
Yeah.
And throughout all my travels, throughout all my research, right, I use a very, very simple method, right? Now, I usually find three guys, if I'm lucky, right? Two to three guys, right? And those guys don't know each other, right? And if three of guys say exactly the same thing, and they got to be from the village, right? There's no city stuff, not urban stuff, right? When people exchange information and they're plugged in, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be rural. It's got to be a rural environment where they don't know anything about outside world except for what they show on TV.
Right.
But obviously don't show this stuff on TV. So whatever been told by the teachers, grandfathers, and so on and so forth, that's the only thing they know.
Right.
So if we have like three guys like that to say exactly the same thing, then I say, yeah, this is a proven fact.
Right.
And whatever other people say, this is definitely wrong. Right? So that's how I learn those things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You have to analyze it.
Yeah.
Because you got to have a proof, and that's the only proof.
Wow.
Otherwise, if things are not written down anywhere, and it's only oral transmission, and you're lucky if it's Jianpu is manual, right?
Yeah,
manual has that information, then you're lucky, right?
Yeah.
Which happened too.
Yeah.
Which was eventually.
Well.
So Taiwan, right?
Yeah.
That's what. So from Taiwan, I went back to Ma Hanting, to Beijing, studied with him, and continued. And then I left. I went to Moscow. Finished my college, graduated. I went to the United States. I went to grad school there.
Right.
Indiana University, East Asian Studies. Supported myself by painting. I was a scenic painter, right?
Oh, really?
They have a famous opera school there at Indiana. and like really famous. So I worked as assistant scenic painter there.
Well, that's
You know,
interesting.
like La Boheme, all those things, you know, wonderful. And the Department of Music paid for my grad school,
Oh, that's amazing.
you know. So that was like kind of exchange I had there. And so while doing that, being at grad school, so every summer I would go to China, go back to China, like for 2 months,
Nice.
right? 2 months at a time, and stayed with Ma Hanting, and I continued learning with him till 1997 when he passed away, unfortunately. Right?
Yeah.
That's it. So I learned everything that he taught me, you know, and that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I had time. It's not like I didn't learn it in 5 days or a year or, you know, in a hotel,
Yeah.
you know, during like one trip once a year. No.
Yeah.
So I finished that system, and he encouraged me to go further, right? So when he passed away, I went to Qingdao. It was a year before he passed away, right? First, he sent me to Qingdao 2 years before he passed away. Then I met some Taiji Meihua guys like Sun Xiupu, like old school, right?
Yeah.
And Six Harmonies Mantis guy in Longkou. It's another city in Shandong.
Right.
They went really well, the whole thing. And so then next year, I went and met my second teacher, Wang Yuanqian, in Qingdao.
Okay.
And the reason why I wanted to find him is because of that Neigong. Because I learned it in Taiwan from the three mountains of Laiyang's Li Kunshan's disciple, Li Hunjie, right? But he didn't want to show me the last part, and I didn't have time to learn it. And I don't know whether he knew it or not. That is like
another story.
That's a whole mystery in Taiwan, because they all know. So a few people say that they know that the last level of Neigong body conditioning, all right, called Sanhui Jiuzhuan. Sanhui Jiuzhuan it's a Taoist term.
Yeah, it is.
Right? 3 terms and 9 rotations.
9 revolutions. Yeah.
It's the cycle that the pill of immortality, elixir in your body goes through.
Yeah.
It's obviously Taoist origin. So I wanted to learn that, and didn't work out in Taiwan. And I knew that Wang Yuanqian, thanks to one of the 7-star guys, well, no, lying, long face, Chan Chuan Talang, right? Long face Mantis guy, John Sabio, who still lives there. He still lives there in Taipei. He studied one of the great masters called Gao Daosheng.
Okay.
He gave me my second teacher's address, right? Because he had the dictionary of Shandong martial artists, and
of course, yeah.
My second teacher's address was there, so he gave it to me. So I went here to Qingdao. It was 1997. Yeah, 97. Right before my teacher passed away.
Wow.
It was my last visit to my teacher, and at the end I went to Qingdao. You know, well, obviously he agreed. It's not like I was trying to find a substitute.
Right.
No, I just wanted to learn the Sanhui Jiuzhuan, because Ma Hanting didn't like any of those Neigong things.
He didn't like them.
I publicly saying it right now. Right? He didn't like it. He didn't believe in none of that stuff. He was like hardcore materialist. Not communist. I mean, obviously he wasn't communist, right? But he was a materialist. Yeah. He was like, he didn't believe in that, right? He was like hardcore. You know, what you do, you train, you fight, and that's all you do.
Right.
You know? I mean, they believed in different kind of gongs. Those, you know, Wai Gong, but no Nei Gong. Though he was a Taiji, made of Wu-style Taiji major figures of the second part of the 20th century, because he was Yang Yutian's disciple. His grandfather, who was that imperial doctor, right? He introduced him when he was like 9 years old, about that time, to Yang Yutian. Yang Yutian was Wang Maozhai's disciple. Wang Maozhai was disciple of Chuan Yu, the founder of Wu-style.
Wu-style, yeah.
And Chuan Yu was Yang Banho's Yan Jihong.
Right.
And Yang Wuchan's student. And he was Manchu. He was a
Manchu.
bannerman.
He was a bannerman for sure. So yeah.
And Wang Maozhai was from Shandong. So years later, I went to Wang Maozhai's village here, about, they say, like 6 years ago. And I found people who learned from him. And that Wu-style they're doing in the village is pretty practical, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They're into fighting, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
they have pretty good applications there. So that's what Ma Hanting did. He did Tai Chi Chuan Wu style, right? He learned from Yang Yuting and Wang Maozhi a little bit. And then he learned Cha Chuan from Ma Yonglong, who was a guy who used to make drums within the city gates as well. He had a little shop and he built drums and he sold those drums. So Ma Hanting learned Cha Chuan from him and Tai Tui for years, right? So those are three styles that he learned prior to Mantis Boxing. And Mantis Boxing he learned he was like 45, I believe.
Okay.
After 1949, it was like 1950s, he was the secretary of Beijing Wushu Association. To get together with Yang Yuting and Chen Yuntao. And Chen Yuntao, who is my grand teacher, right? He became Ma Hanting's teacher. Chen Yuntao was the vice minister of building.
Okay.
Jianzhou Bufu Budang.
Right.
Old Ganbu, old Bolshevik, went through the war, all that stuff, right? And he also happened to be a Mantis guy, right? He knew Six Harmonious Mantis and Plum Blossom Mantis, so he taught both to Ma Hanting, and he used to send, because they worked together there in that Beijing Wushu Xiehui. He used to send his private driver, right? Well, at the time it's kind of rare, right? In the 50s, he picked up Ma Hanting, right? Or drive him back to his Sihoyuan.
Right.
I've been there, right? It's right. If you go from Gulou down towards Gogong, right, down the street, it's still there. And his daughter still lives there.
Really? Okay. Yeah. That must be worth a lot now.
Definitely.
That's prime property right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, his daughter still lives there. So he would drive him there from Ma Hanting's house 3 times a week, and they did the drill Gosho, this Luhe Mantis.
Okay.
His harmonious Mantis has practice of not forms, but drills and free sparring and steps towards free sparring.
Progressive drills,
limited
and then steps to
progressive drills and limited sparring, and this and that, and that's what he was doing with Chen Yuntao for 7 years.
Okay,
that was quite an experience, and so eventually, so it was in the 50s. He met Chen Yuntao, and he started learning from him, right? Let's go back to Wang Yuanqian, right? The 3 mountains of Luoyang and Neigong,
right?
Because it kind of drifted away from that. So I went to learn that Neigong Sanhui Jiuzhuan, 3 turns and 9 rotations. Whatever.
Revolutions.
That thing. Revolution, Sanhui Jiuzhuan. Well, none of that is in Neigong, though. I mean, just the name.
Yeah.
Right? There's no. But there is Gejue, with a rhymed poem.
Rhymed poems,
sonnet. So which actually talks about this, which part is Sanhui and which part is Jiuzhuan.
Okay.
So that was my goal, to learn that Neigong. So I went there, and I had this almost 3 years life experience in Taiwan, when in Taiwan all this martial arts, Chinese martial arts, are covered. Like they kind of like covered with it's so secretive there. Like there's no way you can get into like somebody like try to learn from someone. It's almost impossible unless you pay a gazillion money, like lots of money, and then they still don't teach you. Or they teach you like a little bit, but then that's it. And teach you made up stuff, and, and then you're happy as a client because that veil of secrecy. Secrecy is the thing that drives people's interest, I guess, right? People try to get into things that they don't know about, right? But there's no secret about it at all. So I came to Wang Yuanqian, he was son of Wang Yushan, one of 3 mountains of Luoyang, and I expected to get no, is an answer, right? There's no way he's going to teach me.
Right.
So I came to him and said, Wang Lao, like the Sanhui Jiuzhuan, this and that. Would you teach me? And he said, yeah, sure. And he showed me right away. right there. You have the whole thing, right?
Really?
That's my students with me, and he was filming everything. video camera. And like, what the, like, it's unbelievable. To me, I was shocked to death, right? And I went back to the hotel, right? I got the manual, Mantis manual that I had with all that Sanhui Jodran thing.
Yeah.
And I kind of put two and two together, and I thought he missed one move, right?
Ah.
I'm like, aha, that's got to be for the reason, right? So he showed me that move next day because he wasn't sure whether I'm going to come next day or not.
Oh, I see.
And then he showed me other things, right? And I got interested in that tradition. So I ended up learning from him until he passed away in 2002, unfortunately, untimely death. He got, but he taught me whatever he could, everything in his style.
Right.
All right, so I got that one under my belt. I was training, and then I was open Kung Fu school in America, in New Haven, Connecticut. Was teaching there for 5 years.
Okay, you were teaching there, huh?
Yeah, so I taught there for 5 years. We went to, my guys after a couple of years of training went to, like, the guys who never did any competitive fighting at all. They went to, there was the Goshu, whatever, Taiwanese Goshu Association.
Yeah, it's in the States, yeah.
In Baltimore, they had those tournaments every year.
Yeah.
It's called late high kind of thing. Which is wonderful, but there's no clinch. Like when you go into a clinch, right, they give you like 1 second, like a 2 second, I don't remember, 3 seconds, and then they separate you, right? So my guys went, and my guy almost won. He almost won. Like he trained for 2 years.
Wow.
He got the second place, right? Okay. And the first place he was fighting a guy from Canada, like twice as big as him.
Yeah.
And you know, he knocked that guy a couple times off the platform and almost knocked him out in the beginning, but the guy, the judges decided that guy won, so whatever, right? but it was pretty impressive. And the 1 second year, exactly the same thing happened between another guy.
Really? Okay.
So, and then the whole, that economic crisis in America, the late 2000s, like 2000 or the 2010, around that time, happened. So I lost a bunch of kids. You can't survive just teaching adults.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely not in the States. I mean, for all I've heard from a lot of people that I know that teach there, they're like, if they don't have the kids, they can't survive in their school. So
exactly. Yeah. I mean, and all the kids left simply because the parents lost their jobs.
Yeah.
So they lost the jobs. First thing they do, they cut off all that wonderful extracurricular activities, right? So I was still kind of even. Terms of I could have survived, I could have made through that, but I was like, I really want to go back to China. Like 2010, I was like, I got to go back. So I went back, and 3 years prior to that, all my research, the thing is, when I learned Ma Hanting's Mantis, right?
Yeah.
Then I learned Wang Yuanqian's Mantis. So two different styles. One's called Taiji Maihua Tanglang Quan and Luhe Tanglang Quan. That's two, right? And there's another one called Taiji Tanglang Quan. That's Wang Yuanqian style. Both styles, except for I'm not talking about six harmonious Mantis. That's a different world, right? That's a special topic. But Taiji Maihua, whatever is related to Maihua Plum Blossom Mantis Boxing, right? Both styles, Ma Hanting's and Wang Yuanqian's styles, have their own Jibun Gong. And by that time, I figured out that, all that formed, all the stuff is nonsense. You have to know Jibun Gong.
Jibun Gong is in the basics. Yeah, basics, right.
But there was a huge gap between basics and the actual style in both cases. Right?
Okay.
So it was very strange for me because with Ma Hanting's kind of obvious because he learned many things before. So when Chen Yunтao taught him the Taiji Maihua Tanglang, he didn't bother teaching him much basics. Like he taught him a little bit, but not everything. Certainly not everything.
Okay, I get it.
And with Wang Yuanqian was solid basics there, but those basics were geared only towards half of the styles. There's a group of forms called Zhayao, which means essentials, right? Yeah. So those basics were geared towards essentials, but the old forms, the original maternal forms or paternal, Bambulan Badro, 3 forms, right? They just didn't work. That was like the old stuff that kind of was there and people knew how to use it, sort of, but not important, right? And those Jayao essentials were the most important. Those were the essentials, right? That's what people learned. That's how they taught.
Okay.
So I was wondering, like the old mantis, right, which is those three maternal forms, Bambu, Lanji, and Badro, right? Where did they come from, and how important are they,
Right.
And then those basics didn't work with those forms. So I went to the villages. I was looking for original plum blossom mantis, Diubengong
Okay.
basics, right? That was my goal. And that obviously, that was related to the history, learning about the history development of Mantis Boxing, about the genesis, right?
Right.
So I visited, as a result, within like 20 years or 25, whatever it was, I visited about 100 villages,
Wow.
right? I met over 60 different people, some of them masters, some of them just villagers in the countryside that they learned when they were young, in their youth, in the 1930s, 1920s. Depending on the oldest guy I met was 102 years old.
My God. Wow.
Believe it or not, yeah. And you should try to understand what he was talking about, because the Shandong is amazing to begin with. But if you go like into rural areas, they have all different dialects within those areas, and it's really rough. But I visited that guy twice. It was pretty awesome. He could walk. He just sat on the rock in front of his house and punched me left and right. And his hands were strong, but
102 and he's punching you. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you can feel power.
Yeah.
Power generation. 102, and there's all that strength that came out of him. Like, and I've seen it not once, many times.
Yeah.
Like, this is like another example is another guy, the 80-year-old guy I found like 5 years ago. He passed away, unfortunately. Also, old school Meihua, rural Mantis, village Mantis, Meihua Mantis guy. So he was sitting there on the couch with my friend and disciple, a Russian guy named Andrew. The Andrew is 7 feet tall, right? 2.08 meters.
Okay.
So 2 meters,
8 centimeters. Wow.
Yeah, that guy, and 100, whatever, 10 pounds, kilogram, 5 kilograms. He was from far away. He built like Bruce Lee, right?
Yeah.
But when he comes close to you, then you kind of start freaking out because he gets bigger and bigger and bigger once he's walking closer to you. Right? The super strong, crazy strong guy. Been with me for like 20 years.
Okay.
From the 90s. So he's sitting on the couch, right, in that village with that 8-year-old dude. And that old guy was trained by his father in the old plum blossom Mantis tradition when he was young. And then he stopped. He didn't train because he had like hard life.
Okay.
And then he retired, kind of like stopped doing that, his peasant work and whatever peasants do, plow fields and all those agricultural activities. And then he came back. He decided to continue training. He raised a couple of students, but nobody practiced anymore. That's a standard situation right now.
Yeah.
But so I asked him to show me basic three, like in Mantis they have basics like Sanchui, Lane Sanchui.
Okay.
3 punches, right?
Yeah.
3 punches, just three, like triple, 3 punches in a row, right?
Yeah.
So the old guy was sitting on the couch, right, with 108 centimeter tall guy, right, and heavy as hell, next to him.
Yeah.
Right. And when he was punching air, right, with those punches, at the age of, he was 83 exactly at the time, right? The whole couch would jump forward together with Andrew. Like 2 of them and the couch would just jump with every punch. Like he did 10, like 5 sets of 3 or something like that. It was the most amazing. So Andrew stood up, he said like, why he never experienced anything like this, right?
Yeah.
And the reason that not because he's like crazy strong or anything, it's just all these trips into the countryside taught me that the basics they were taught when they were young were incredible. And the way they taught were incredible. Those guys could fight based on that, right? And then eventually with time, like in 2000, whatever, things got kind of diluted by everything. And that is urban versus rural
Okay.
problem.
Yeah. Would you say that affected Mantis as well as it came into the major, urban areas? I mean,
Definitely, definitely. That's how it rolled, because in the village, there was no exposure to other stuff.
okay.
Uh, Pretty much zero.
Yeah.
The only exposure you would get is like random Jianghu wandering dude would come and say, "I'm gonna teach Hanzi, I'm gonna kick you out of your school and
Yeah.
take your school away," which they did. So you have to stand up for yourself. You have to fight the guy, and if he kicks your ass, then you leave your kung fu school and go elsewhere, right? And that's it. But when they moved from the village to the city, and at that time was Yantai, right? Because foreign concessions were there, all these British guys and French guys and so on and so forth. And it's a thriving port. All this commerce was going on, the economy was booming. Everybody was there. Everybody was moving there. That was a place to make money.
Yeah.
So also, like, Kung Fu guys also moved there. The Mantis guys moved there. They opened Kung Fu school, and including guys who lived there as well. So they were competing with each other, obviously, right? And they were also learning from each other. So there was kind of a melting pot. And they were very cosmopolitan, as city is. It has to be. So the city, this cosmopolitan situation, influenced the development of many, many styles, not just Mantis.
Right.
We're talking about Mantis nowadays, right? So Mantis became fused with other styles. Oh, and with other Mantis styles as well.
Right.
So eventually, like today, it's pretty much, like for most of the people, it's possible to say what the original Mantis looks like.
Right.
Because obviously you believe your shifu, you believe your Chishi does this 100% right thing, right? And another guy, you don't believe him, right? But that's not the case oftentimes. Oftentimes it's just a fusion of different styles, and people believe that the purer style, the better it is, but it's not true.
That's not true.
The Ma Hanting used to say, like, if I do Mantis, right, the same way as, 1 or 2 generations back, exactly the same way, it means that's a dead style.
Yeah, it's not improving. It's not evolving to improve.
It didn't evolve.
Yeah.
It didn't evolve at all, right? Absolutely, it has to evolve, right? But it has to evolve within the certain frame.
Yeah, within the constraints of the style and certain principles that are crucial. It cannot go away from theirs, but within that framework, there's got to be evolution and improvement.
Yeah, absolutely, and that means it means that teacher that you learn from, right? He basically was a mediocre teacher because he didn't improve the style, because he's like every person's personal experience got to be reflected in what he teaches.
Yeah.
It has to be. All right, so does mean that the forms got to be changed, right?
No.
Sometimes forms are changed too, because certain moves don't work. You know that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's an experience thing.
Movements. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you just get rid of those flowery moves. We don't need them anymore, right? You just replace them with things that worked for you, right? But what works for my teacher does not necessarily work for me.
Right.
So in Ma Hanting's system was very, very simple. Like they had, and we have pet techniques, right? My favorite, it's like kind of modern judo, whatever, right? Three techniques they are really good at. You kick me at night, in the head, I wake up and then I destroy you with those techniques, theoretically, right? Because I know them. I really, really know them. And I have like 3 to 9 techniques that I'm very good at, but not quite as good as those 3. But those 3 rotate. They revolve.
Okay.
Because with your age, with your experience, and so on and so forth. And that's why we have so many forms. It's like a library to choose from. You experiment, you try this, does work, that does work, this works, right? This works, I like it, so I train it. So I get bored of it, say, or I got older, I can't do it anymore because of physical limitation or whatever, right? And or I tried this, it didn't work, I lost, right?
Yeah.
I got my butt kicked by some other guy, right? So I have to rethink the situation, right? And maybe rework this technique or choose another one
Yeah.
and bring it to perfection. So it's always evolving process. Right?
Yeah.
And that's how it was. So in the cities, that fusion happened, right? Therefore, you can't find roots. But I'm interested in the roots. I'm interested in where it came from. How it looked like. Like I want to find a time machine. And you go back and to see how it was done back then.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. That's just my personal interest. Some people don't care about that, right?
Yeah,
Some people just want to learn, want to find, want to this, want that, but they don't want to know about the historical roots. But I do. So I finally found the time machine, my own personal time machine, right? After like about 20 years in the villages, right? Going back and forth, there's 100 villages. I kind of, honestly, I was already tired running around. The first time I went to the village, I went with my second teacher, Wang Yuqian. He took me there, right? Before that, I was thinking about contemplating going to the villages, but I was kind of afraid. Like, I didn't know what to do there. Like, I go there, with my whatever Putonghua that does work there, right?
Yeah, they don't understand you so well. You don't understand them at all. So, yeah.
Exactly. And so what do I ask them?
Yeah.
How do they're going to say, get out of here, you're not from around here, type of thing. So, and Wang Yunqian took me because I wanted to see Liang Xuxian. That's one of the major figures in the late part of 19th century, right? The guy who formed Plum Blossom Mantis Boxing.
Yeah.
Overall, formed the curriculum, and all other branches kind of they sprouted out of his teachings.
Okay.
So I wanted to see his descendants, and Wang Yuqian took me to that village, right? It was 1999, around normal New Year, Yuan Dan, right? Not Chinese New Year. It was cold. We went there and we found those descendants of Liang Xuxian. It was absolutely awesome experience.
Wow.
And from then on, I just got involved in this. I already knew how to do that. I'm kind of, I became brave, I guess. So I went to the villages and just like now I have all the system developed, right? And it's very interesting. Every village is like, it's like every village has different character.
Okay.
It's like the village itself. We're talking about like individualistic society in the Western world,
right?
And communal life in China, which is still around, and that's why they're conquering COVID. One of the reasons.
Yeah,
why.
Exactly.
And in those villages, like it's like the entire village has their own character. They're good villagers, right? They're happy villagers. They're sad villagers. Like you feel it when you talk to people. They're angry villagers. They're asshole villagers. Which is true. Which I met like a couple asshole villagers. It's like you go there, and everybody is an asshole. They're mean to you. They hate you. They don't want to talk to you. And it stinks in that village, literally, right? Like manure, whatever. Right?
Maybe that's why they're in such a bad mood, because they just they're smelling poop all day.
Yeah, probably. It's like, what Russian classics, right? Like Gogol wrote about those different villages. They have their own characters, right? It's exactly the same thing. It's like you would be surprised, but that's how it is.
Yeah.
And obviously, most of the villages are nice. Chinese people are happy and friendly and so on and so forth. And you get to those villages, and everybody tries to help you, and eventually you find those guys. Sometimes, like when I lived with my third teacher, that we're going to talk about the time machine, right? Yeah. At that time I was living in the village and I was working, but not in his village, right? I was in a nearby village. I rented a house. So I was working in the mountains, right? And there was an old dude from the nearby village driving a tractor, right?
Yeah.
Across the mountain, right? It was like 5 o'clock. Shabarla, we're going home to eat. So he saw me, right? He freaked out. It's a lot wide. It's a corner in the middle of the mountains, in the middle of nowhere. He never met me before, right?
He must have thought you were a Yeren.
Yeah, probably.
Some Yeti type of, wild man.
Yeah, Sasquatch. I was like, he saw me as a hairy Sasquatch. He was like, so, Sasquatch, what are you doing here? I'm like, this and that. I'm talking about like, I'm doing Mantis, doing research. Like, he's like half understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then I tell him the name, right, of my teacher's teacher, right? And he's like, oh, I know the guy. And my teacher's teacher died in 1947. Man.
Okay.
Okay. He's like, I know him. I'm like, yeah, really? He said, yeah. And the guy is like 82.
Okay.
He's like, when I was 30 years old, I met him like 10 times, right down there in the village. He was teaching that family, that family, that family. And he tells me the whole story, what happened.
Wow.
Right. And like, I get that sense, like things happen, like, Chinese, this concept of yuan fen.
Right. Destiny.
Yeah. Well, destiny, no, it's not. I don't think it's quite correct.
Yeah, it's the closest. It's the closest
when
we
the
have.
things come together when they're supposed to.
Right.
Right. More like that. Like if you're thriving, trying to get somewhere, right? If you put enough effort, then things come together. If you don't, then they don't.
Right.
So it's more like that. So like you meet those people accidentally without even looking for them, right? And then they tell you stories. And obviously, I recorded everything, like, neurotically, and was very happy. And that's not just one time.
Mm.
So I visited many of those people, right, who practiced in the 30s. And in the 30s, there was that boom of martial arts, like wushu, based on the national
drive,
building of national identity drive. Because it was like that. And like in Qin Dynasty, it was like 3% of the population did wushu only. It was a marginalized
of course.
Group of people that everybody kind of didn't like.
Yeah, exactly.
The hooligans, bandits, and you name it.
Exactly.
Right? And all the only way was out was to take military exams and become an officer.
Mm.
Your government career was the best thing for you to do if you're into fighting. But in the 1930s, in every village here in Shandong, they had 2 to 3 to 5 kung fu schools per village. Imagine?
Yeah.
5 kung fu schools per village. So everybody was trained. So obviously, some of those old guys are still around, right?
Yeah.
So my goal was to find all of them and try to kind of reconstruct the whole basics, Jibengong system of Mantis Boxing, Plum Blossom Mantis.
I see.
From those times, which did not survive in either systems, and no other popular today Mantis Boxing systems have that. Right, I'm not talking about 7 Star. That's a different animal, as well as 6 Harmonies Boxer, right? Mantis Boxer, just Plum Blossom Mantis. And so by getting these bits and pieces from different villages, I put together, like, based on that system of 3 people saying the same thing, it must be true, right?
Yeah.
So I figure out what been done, right? And some of those guys could actually perform, like that guy, the couch
on the
moves.
couch, yeah.
Yeah, and the guy came out of the cornfield and like, what? And he like drops his shovel and started doing Mantis of like from 1930s.
Wow.
Filming him, and we're done. And like, there's no like drinking, no nothing. Like I shake his hand and say, see you in a couple of years. And he goes back into his cornfield.
Wow.
And 2 years later, I come and exactly the same happened. But 2 years later, I have to take him to the restaurant.
Okay. Then there's drinking.
He gets completely drunk, shit-faced, like, after 2 bottles of somewhat like Argot whole thing out of plastic bottles. And there's a site with my student, right, sitting on the village, on the main road, right? 2 drunk guys, right? Both can walk. They're drinking beer and beating each other, trying techniques on each other, right? That's the most amazing thing ever.
But this is the real, this is the real beauty. I hate to say it, but this is the real beauty of Kung Fu practice. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
It's those moments.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just like the other one, just like to dilute the seriousness. Like we're here in Shandong, right? A couple of months ago, there's one of the Chinese wrestling Shuai Jiao guy, which I practice with. He's a great dude. He won a bunch of tournaments here in the 1950s, and his shifu was 1930 straight Qingdao Goshu Guan champion of Shandong forever. So that's a good lineage.
Good lineage, yeah, good level.
And he did a little Mantis. So he knows Mantis. And he kind of devised his own kind of quintessential extract of his Shuai Jiao, like 12 or 13 throws, which are very suitable for Mantis. So he wants to teach someone. So I said, okay, let's do it. So he's teaching me. But so that guy, my Kung Fu bro, right, from Wang Yuanqian's lineage here in Qingdao, I invited them to eat. right? So we're sitting eating. Like obviously, Qingdao people drink beer 24/7. So we're drinking Qingdao beer. After two of those jugs of Zaphi
Yes.
draft beer, both are 70 years old, right? One is 69, another 70. Tiny, tiny room, right? We finished eating, and then they get up, right?
Mm.
And then there's space between the closed doors, right? Between the table and the doors, no wider than 1 meter, right?
Okay.
So one guy is like, all right, now I'm going to show you this Mantis technique. He's like, all right, but I know how to do it. I know the antidote.
Right.
All right, let's do it. So he goes, and while he's doing this technique on him, right, he throws him. But while this guy is falling on the table with all his food there, left over, right, the other guy punches him, uppercuts him, like Mantis style, right, in the jaw, right? So the guy doesn't fall down. He just stays there, right? Kind of balances out. But he's angry because both are drunk. Like, not like he's drunk, but good.
Yeah.
They're very brave. They feel brave. I call it
Yeah.
when we're drunk, right? So, and then it goes on from there, right? And it's like, no, 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 no. And they're not really screaming at each other, as you would expect. They just discuss this, and then they continue. But then the other guy's trying. Just try it again. Right, so he's trying it again, and then in this case, this guy like elbows him, and that continues for like 5-10 minutes on and on. That's a 70-year-old dude like beating living crap out of each other there, like for no particular reason, right? And for me, it's kind of fun. I'm like watching it. I'm enjoying the situation. Like, that's real Mantis, and that's how it works.
Yeah.
All right, and then they sit down, and we finish dinner, and I walk with one of them, and he's like, "Yeah, he shouldn't have done this. He should have punched me in the face." That's how things are done. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
Yeah, for sure. So you've done...
Street fights.
Yeah.
I've been here in street fights with them too in Shandong.
Mm.
About 10 years ago or so, 15 years ago. They're very like hands-on guys.
Right. Yeah.
But for forest tournaments, I don't know. So anyway, so my third teacher,
Yeah.
right? So I was looking for the time machine, right?
Mm.
Basics and so forth. So I kind of lost my drive by that.
Okay.
I'm like,
Yeah.
come on. I'm like, keep meeting guys that did something a little bit, remember a little bit, can explain to me a little bit, but I want to know the system. Like, does anyone know the entire Jibengong
Yeah.
of Plum Blossom Mantis? That was my question.
Yeah.
It was the last day in China during that trip with Andrew, with a 208 guy. We sit in the hotel in Haiyang County. And our train was at 7 from Qingdao.
Okay.
So we didn't have much time, right? Because there's like 2-hour drive from Haiyang to Qingdao, and you got to give yourself 2-3 hours
Yeah.
plus minus. So we woke up at 6 in the morning, and he's like, okay, let's go to the villages for a couple of hours. So I'm like, nah, let's not do it. I mean, we're done. It's enough of this guys that come out of cornfields. Just they don't know much. And he said, no. He actually insisted on us going, and we went. So we got the taxi, and the taxi guy drove us in the middle of nowhere. Right. When we arrived to one village and got out of there, and it's like black plague went through the village. Like, nobody is there, not even dogs, like completely. And people live there, right?
Mm.
Zero, like the dark windows and wind blows through. Nobody, not even like Lao Qian Bei sitting in front of Dadui,
Right.
the party committee, like talking and smoking and doing whatever they're doing. No one.
Mm.
So finally, I found a shop, right, like a little store, and the old guy came out. And oftentimes I talk to taxi drivers to save time,
Right.
I prop them before the trip to the villages. They know exactly what to ask, whom to ask. I'm like, I point the finger, say, go, ask. So the taxi driver runs, and then he talks to the old person,
Right.
And the old person, like, tells him, like, the points. If he starts pointing fingers, then, we succeeded,
Right.
That we found someone. So this guy wasn't pointing fingers in any direction. So when the taxi driver came, I knew that this village is out of picture.
Yeah.
Eventually, I found people in that village, but not at that time. But then I found another guy. He started pointing fingers, and he said, "This in that nearby village over there, right? There is a super cool, old school Plum Blossom Mantis guy who is 90 years old." I'm like, that sounds pretty good to me,
Yeah.
right? So if you drive directly, right? Now I know where it is, right? It would have taken about 20 minutes, right, straight. That guy was circling us around for 2 hours in that area, right? We eventually get into the little bridge that's going across the river, tiny river, or more like stream, right? So we got on the bridge, and the bus went halfway on the bridge, and that guy went half on the bridge. So like like
Yeah.
in Hutung, that
Yeah.
situation,
Yeah.
facing each other, nobody can go anywhere.
Right.
So we sitting on that bridge forever. Finally, we backed out, and the bus drove. So finally, we found that village, right? We found the village. We asked like a few old guys along the way, and eventually one of the old dudes like started pointing fingers, right? I'm like, okay,
You
cool.
got something.
So we went,
Yeah.
yeah, got something. Went there, the door opened, the taxi driver ran and saw my teacher to be, right? Lin Tang Fang opened the door, and like he waved at me. So I went with Andrew. We went together, and the guy, the old man, 90-year-old man, right, dressed like the 1930s,
Really?
pretty much the same thing. It was round glasses,
Yeah.
um, and he looked at me and like he said, "Yeah, you know what I do?" I'm like, "What?" He said, "I do Mantis of Wang Long, which is the founder of Mantis Boxing, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay." I looked at him, and then after that, immediately he starts citing Mantis manuals
Okay.
by heart.
Wow.
And at that point, I'm like, "Whoa, this is amazing. This is what I've been looking for forever, right?" And we got into his house, and then we start conversation. And found out that it's like in your case, he would be like Dong Haichuan's grand disciple,
Okay.
like that,
Okay. Yeah.
right? Um, so like this is like this gap. Whatever people do now is like seventh, eighth, ninth
Yeah.
generation, right? And he's like the fifth generation.
Okay.
So he's seen it all because his teacher learned from Liang Xiuxiang, the main guy,
Right.
like the founder, pretty much the founder of the system. And I start talking to him, and he knows everything. Like whatever I want to ask him, right? He like sometimes he talks ahead of me and tells me all that I want to know.
Right.
And I learn new information every second, right? Like a tsunami going towards me. I'm overwhelmed, obviously. I'm like, Andrew, let's stay here. Let's not go anywhere. Well, he told me that. I'm like, yeah, but we can't because we have
The train.
a train.
Yeah.
Plus we have a plane to going home from Beijing next day. So we talked to him, like the taxi driver sitting right next to us, like kind of getting impatient because it's been like already 3 hours, like filming everything, talking, writing everything down. And then finally we said, we got to go. So he looked at me and he said, I'm turning 90 this year. I don't have much time to leave. If next time when you come, if I am dead, don't worry about it. I have a son, my son, he's in his 60s, so he knows everything and he'll teach you.
Okay.
And then with that, I left. Imagine what I was feeling. Right?
Yeah.
So I came back exactly 3 months later from the States, from Connecticut.
Right.
And that's it. So and that's the point I started learning from him.
He was still there.
Whole system. He was still there for another 3 years. I was like, like traditionally in Manchester was back in the day. It took 3 years to right to release the disciple,
right.
to make a student learn everything. So in 3 years, kind of right, but he passed away unfortunately. And then I continued with his son.
Okay.
He's my kung fu brother, and that is it. And that put everything not just in perspective, right? All the pieces of that puzzle that I was missing for all those years, right? They came together.
Okay.
All of a sudden, I had everything. I had every single piece pretty much. And then all my further village trips just proved that system right.
Okay,
right?
I see.
So everything was in place. And then I went even further, pre-Mantis styles, and discovered pre-Mantis styles that influenced Mantis development in the 1700s and so on and so forth. So and then they built the whole clear picture of actually happened plus minus. So now it's during those trips nowadays, I kind of correct it a little bit, but general picture stays the same.
Oh, I see.
So that's the whole trip. And then obviously then I went to the Six Harmonies staff, fencing system, fighting.
Yeah, that's the other thing that you
things.
were very much
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
researching and looking into. So this teacher's son that you continued with, is he still alive?
Yeah, Leroy is still alive.
Okay.
Yeah, he's still in the village. You go to him, have dinner with him, and punch you in the face. literally punch you in the face many times and say like, okay, this is Plum Blossom Mantis, because that's how they taught. In old days, they just like would beat. It's not like Ma Hanting didn't touch me; they all touched me, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, the show techniques, but that was like this absolute like very little control from the end. Like I'm sitting on a little maja, this folding chair, right?
Yeah.
And then one punch is showing me technique, punching me in the face. Another punches from another side. I'm like half knocked out, literally.
Yeah.
My head is dizzy. But they explained it's very simple. If they don't beat me during the training, right?
Yeah.
It's like in boxing. Then what? Then I leave them, right? And I get in the fight with another guy, right? I get my ass handed to me, and that's it. So they lose faith.
Yeah, of course. It's always like that. Yeah.
And it's very, very, very old philosophy from that. So, otherwise they don't have anything to eat anymore because all the students are going to be disappointed. They're going to leave them.
Right, exactly.
Right? And that's how it was. And that's one of the reasons why this old rural Kung Fu, in this case Mantis, was transferred to urban area. If you start beating your disciples and students, right, how many are you going to have left in a month? 0, right? So...
Yeah, and that's even more so the case today. I mean, so it's quite interesting if we look at the styles that came out of the villages. I mean, even the evolution of certain prominent styles as they evolved in the urban environment. That you can see a similar thing happening even outside of Mantis with many styles. The same thing occurring. It becomes a little bit more of a civil social practice, and with a
absolutely. The whole thing is being just simply physically tougher. I'm not talking about mentally. Mentally, it's for sure. Right? You can't survive in the village if you're not mentally tough. Physically, much superior to any of those urban citizens. Right nowadays, there's no way they can be compared. Those guys are like physical monsters.
Yeah.
Because that's physical labor every day in his childhood. What do you expect at the end of the life, right? Whether he does push-ups or he does do push-ups, he doesn't need those.
He doesn't
push-ups,
need to,
right?
Yeah.
Plus, in old days, we have the whole military examination preparation system, athletic system.
Yeah.
Like you combine that physical labor since childhood and that part, right? And then you get guys who can actually stand up for themselves, that they make those techniques work because they're physically insanely strong. And those techniques are not just weightlifting.
Yeah.
They built very specific skills and very specific forces.
Right.
Like the whole athletic system of stone lifting and halberd spinning. And,
bow pulling.
Those strong bow pulling.
Yeah.
It's all designed for wrestling.
Yeah.
Mounted wrestling on a horse or off the horse on the ground. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Because you develop super grip, you can pull the guy off the horse and throw it.
Of course.
That's it. That's all you need. It's a battlefield skills, just like China does wrestling. Today is Chinese right? But it's actually the Manchu national, nomadic wrestling. Let's call it that way.
Yeah.
Right? It's all for that.
And
Mantis. It's very. Wait a sec. Mantis has like those village Mantis, right? I found out throughout that has a lot of Shuaijiao influence. Right, there's lots of things are fused into the original Mantis.
Really,
it's very, very interesting.
And what?
But it's obviously limited to the style,
of
right?
course.
You don't have gazillion throws or trips or whatever.
You don't need a gazillion throws or trips.
Exactly. They have like 3 throws, right? And those 3 throws are perfect. And variations of that, and they drill that to death, and they can pull it off.
Exactly.
Versus learning 25 forms and won't be able to use
any of
single
them.
technique.
Right, exactly. So you've done, I mean, what is, with all this research over the years, your documentation, your filming, your writing, all of these, I mean, what is your plan with all of this? Are you going to publish all of it? Are you...
Yeah, yeah. Because I have like 3 to 4 books, like 90, like 70% written, finished. But my problem is because running back and forth from like between three countries, right? China, Russia,
Yes,
and
US,
US.
yeah.
Different situation kind of prompt me to write basically in Russian and English.
Ah,
So half of those materials are in Russian, half of them are in English. So I kept trying to put it all together, to either put everything into Russian or into
why not
English,
both?
because both too, but it takes time
Yeah,
too, because I still have other things to do.
of
So
course.
I'm working on it, definitely. I want to publish it as soon as I can. I keep promising everybody, right? But
Yeah.
everybody's like, nobody believes me anymore. It's been so many years. Because believe it or not, the first book I wrote was finished, right? And like by 2003, it was finished 100%. 300 pages, solid book on all major stuff that I learned about, right? But then as soon as I start going deeper into those villages, into countryside, right? I start getting new information. So typically people publish things and do like second
Yeah,
edition, third edition,
exactly.
right? But in my case, all the third editions and fifth editions were happening in my head and on paper without publishing.
Right.
That's it. That's how it
Of
rolls.
course,
So,
of course. The same thing happened
uh,
with me with the Shingy stuff that I was writing. Every time I go back and look at stuff that I wrote before, I'm like, okay, no, need to add this. Oh, there's this that I'd like to expand on here, and then carry on, and then go to the end, another section, then go back to the other section a year later, and I'm like, no, still need to do this, add this. You never finish. You
right.
never finish. So, but
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that you're getting it almost done. I'm looking forward to whatever you
Yeah,
finish
but
creating.
I do publish those articles
Yeah,
continuously, right?
yeah.
But those are easy to do. But believe me, like everything is in on my laptop. All that information. It just has to be reorganized.
Yeah.
And
And is
again,
your
again,
yeah? Go ahead. Yeah, you were saying.
so no. What is
Are
it?
you planning on staying in China? I mean,
Yeah. For now, yeah, definitely. I'm here.
okay.
Not going anywhere. Yeah, I'm happy here.
Yeah, because I mean, you did go back and forth, and then there was a period of time that you were trying to settle. I think I don't know if it was back.
In
Yeah,
Moscow.
back in Moscow or.
Yeah. It was in Moscow. It was a year in Moscow, and then I went before that, even like 10 years ago. I went to Moscow also for a year. I lived for such a long time away from Russia, so it's still difficult.
Yeah.
Difficult to get grounded there. And I'm much more comfortable, developing myself here because China is easy for me, and America is easy for me. But my goal has always been China. America has never been
The goal.
the case. Well, yeah, the goal. Just grad school and that's it. What just happened? Got married, this and that. Yeah, stayed there. But China that's where I feel most comfortable. In fact, in Beijing, I love Beijing, man.
Yeah.
I love the whole Hutongs.
Yeah, well, they are disappearing, man. They are disappearing.
I
So
know.
they're becoming just a tourist thing, or, that's about
But
it.
it's still, here, there, you have
Yeah,
quite a few
yeah,
still.
yeah.
Oh, there.
I always like.
And the spirit is there.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you can still
the feeling.
you walk down sometimes, and you'll just see the unassuming door. That's always it. There's this unassuming door, and it's open, and you look down this door, into this door, and there's this like kind of dark little corridor, and it's going into one of the, there's people living there. You kind of can see. They're going about their day, and they've just got such a character. Their life is carrying on. They're doing their.
Exactly. And they never lock their doors,
Yeah.
which is amazing, right? Because nobody could ever steal anything Hutongs from anyone, because it would be known.
Everybody
immediately
knows. There's
on the spot.
you know the movie The Hills Have Eyes. Well, in the Hutong, the walls have eyes.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And that is kind of like the same thing, like we're talking about the dichotomy, city, urban, this and that, and rural. But in general, Beijing is a one large, like old Beijing, the Hutong area, just one huge village.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That's it. or like bunch of villages placed together
Right, right.
with the imperial palace in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
But obviously, social dynamics are a little bit different. Definitely,
Yeah, for sure.
no questions
For
about it.
sure. And you've, more recently you've been quite, uh, visible with you've been promoting the Qing
Right,
athletic system, which is the stone lifting and
right,
the
yeah,
halberds and the pulling of bows. And
yep,
is there? I mean, I think you've got quite few people that are following you and learning
yeah,
and
yeah,
how's that
yeah.
going?
It is getting popular, slowly, which is a good thing,
Mm,
right? People get interested in it. He's doing great. I mean, I lifted a stone, like the examination stone.
mm,
It was 2009 or 2010. The first stone was one of the three mountains of Layang. Cao Shushai's grandson opened Mantis museum in Yantai,
okay.
right? And he collected, because they used to have Layang Goshuguan,
Yeah.
the martial arts academy of Layang County in the 1930s.
Yeah.
So they had all equipment there. And he got a guy who sponsored the whole museum thing. So because he got funds, so he collected all this old equipment from 1930s,
Mm,
stones and stuff, and barbells and stone locks, chasseur, all these
yeah.
things, and put in the museum. So he had Shushan stone. And so the thing is that we don't know, with all this internal stuff and Zhangzhuang and this and
Yeah.
that and Nagel, people don't understand today that all those guys, including all the Taiji guys, like main figures, right? They all lifted stones
Mm,
because they all wanted better life.
yeah. Yeah.
That was the only social lift you could take. Because obviously you're not good at a civil career,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because maybe you're literate, but you're not literate enough to be able to pass the governmental civil exam,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, and if you're a martial artist, so you have two ways, pretty much, right? You either go to Jianghu and become marginalized element,
Yeah.
like Samai bandits, and not respected by the society, because all these guys were on the same level as picking opera actors and prostitutes,
Yeah.
like the bottom of the society, or become an officer,
Mm,
right? And take these exams. That's why, like in our Mantis world, one of the founders of Taiji Mantis Boxing of Layang, they all took the 3-year preparation for the exams.
right.
But the problem was that it was in 1889 when the last exam happened.
Mm,
And then so when they started in 1901, they closed the whole thing forever, right?
yeah.
Never to have to repeat again. So they prepared, but they didn't take the exam, so it didn't work out. But they went through all the training, and many of those, like Chen Wantian was like the Chen Wantian, what he did.
Yeah.
They actually killed the examiner, right? They killed it was the end of Ming Dynasty, right? That's when we started lifting stones and swinging halberds. Didn't have bow yet,
Mm,
right? But they had archery mounted and foot
yeah.
archery. And he thought that the judge, the official, government official, was not fair. So those three guys just killed him, right? And they kicked out of the examination system. That's the Chen Taiji guy,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah. Chen
one of the main
Yeah.
figures, right? So, and he's not just the only one, right? They all lifted stones, and those things give you superior strength overall. Doesn't matter what. Like, if to lift a stone, you have to, like, if you're weak, you'll be strong eventually,
Right.
right? That's and that's a lost part of Chinese martial arts, because during Qin Dynasty for 270 years, or almost, right,
Mm,
260 years, that was a part of regular training of anyone who was involved in martial
yeah.
arts, for sure.
Yeah.
That's what they did.
And how's it going with regards to your own? I mean, you said you started in 2009. You kind of got you
Yeah, I lifted the stone, and then that's it, because I didn't have stones, I didn't have a teacher, right?
yeah.
I just, it's not just lifting it
So
like
how to lift,
deadlift
yeah.
style, and that's it. That's what I thought too, just lifting it, and that you're done,
Mm,
right? But it's much more complex than that, because then obviously, if you think about it, in order to compete, it was like Chinese Olympics,
oh,
for real. Like real Chinese Olympics, every 3 years they would compete. Well, in fact, they'll compete every year, but to get to the imperial level, the palace level examination, they have to go through three steps,
Yeah.
right? Which is the county examination, the prefecture, the provincial examination, and the imperial palace examination, capital examination. And that had like 3 steps too.
Yeah.
So think of it. They had for 260 years. Every 3 years they had to prepare. Obviously, there was a whole system developed.
Yeah, of course.
And the people competed. Like there's no way they could compete if they had only 3 kinds of stones, right? 300 stones, which is 300 jin, the heaviest, right? But that was Qin dynasty jin, right? Which is if you based on the calculations and those antique examples that I have. It's a between 70 and 72 kilos stone. Yeah. That was the heaviest. The second, the medium stone, was 142, 250 in between. And the lighter stone was between 113 to 117, 18 kilos stones. I mean, even 113 kilos, 110 kilo stone is a heavy thing to lift.
100. But you said the lightest was 100 kilos.
113. Yeah.
The lightest.
For the for the examination.
Yeah,
and the heaviest is 172 kilos. Yeah, I said 170.
So I mean, those are all some serious weights already.
Right, but everybody, according to all those records, right, Qin dynasty records, people during the exams, right, everybody would lift 172 kilo stone. Think about it. Everyone. So how would you distinguish who is better?
Yeah.
No, not by how many times. You're supposed to lift it 3 times. But when you lift it, you do weird things with it. It's kind of like figure skating with stones. Right? You lift it and you do different different moves with it.
You take one hand off and still hold it and support it. And,
right. Or you put it on your knees, right? And you ask the other guy to put 70 kilo halberd on top of 170 kilo stone on your mabu stem, right? On top of the stone, and you kind of lean sideways, grab rice paper and a brush with ink, put it on top of a stone, and write 4 beautiful characters and present it to the chief examiner. And it would say, like, you know, the best of your career, you will become a super duper official in a couple of years, right? And then the examiner would look at it and say, okay, this guy is really good. Because those other guys just lifted it 3 times, and this guy did funky stuff, right? He did those figures, right? That's how they judge them. So eventually it developed into a whole very interesting system. Plus, when the whole thing collapsed, like in 1889, then when they stopped it, right? Shan Puyan, the wrestling division of Bannerman, right? Of the imperial wrestlers, they continued. That's what they were doing.
Yeah, they carried that out. They carried that out of the Shan Puyan.
They carried them in, and plus at the end of every imperial palace examination, right? At the very end, when they gave them the armor and weapons, and or to the champions, right? Zhang Yuan, the imperial wrestlers performed their routines to show off, to show to those champions that they're nobody, right? That we are bannermen, we are imperial wrestlers, we are bodyguards of the emperor, and we are so much more superior to you guys, right? So they developed even funkier figure skating with stones and halberds and bows, right? Because they have to show off. So those champions, they would go and look at it, and there's no way they could repeat that, right? So that's another side of it. So when the whole thing collapsed, obviously nobody needed that. I mean, it was the old world. Archery went down the toilet pretty much. Nobody continued.
You got guns.
That disappeared. Bow pulling and stone lifting and halberd spinning went to the marketplaces like Tianqiao, Beijing, right? Together with the wrestlers. But again, those wrestlers were not happy, right? Because first of all, they got rid of this whole organization, right? They became homeless, and most of them became rickshaws. They were just running around and pulling people, right? They became
rickshaw pullers and doing whatever they could to get some money to feed themselves.
Right. and they didn't want to teach anyone because they had a certain pride was attached to that. Because we were the upper class, basically aristocracy of that time, right? And all of a sudden we're nobodies, and we're not going to teach those Han people, Chinese people,
Yeah.
right? It's our thing, it's our bannerman thing. Because all bannermen had to do that.
Well,
All Harrisons, all army had
well,
to do
the
that.
other interesting thing is, and this is, I mean, it's part of this series that I'm still producing on the history, the uncommon history, the hidden history of Shuaijiao. Because you
Yeah,
you
alone.
hear the repetition of like, oh, the Shanpu Ying were the imperial bodyguards, and then at the same time you hear people not trying to clearly say that they were Manchu, you know,
Right, exactly.
but
They hide that
but they
fact.
don't
Yeah.
realize that if you say that the Shanpu Ying were bodyguards, and if
Right,
you
right.
understand
By default,
the banner system, it's
yes,
impossible for non-Han to become imperial
precisely.
bodyguards. You have to be Manchu.
Yep, yep.
So,
Actually, or you have to be a Mongol.
well,
That's
actually,
it.
there were three types of. If we talk about the imperial guarding system, there were three types. There were the guards, there were the vanguards, and the imperial bodyguards. So those are the three levels. The
Right.
guards would like take care of the the grounds. Okay, they were the guards of a palace ground or whatever, and those could come from Mongol or Manchu banners, no Han banners.
Right.
The vanguards, which are usually the people that will, if the emperor is going out of the palace to somewhere, they would they would go
Right.
out first, or the same thing, they would go into, if there was a battle, they would lead the charge in front. So
Right.
that's the
Right. The Vanguard.
yeah.
Right.
Also, you could come out of the Manchu or Mongol banners, but the last level, the imperial bodyguards, they were only those were the people that were next to the emperor, right? They go
Right.
with him everywhere. They were only allowed to come out of the Manchu banners and the top three levels of the Manchu banners.
Like three banners,
Yeah,
right?
the top three. So,
Top three.
yeah,
Yep.
it's very clear that if you're saying that the Shampu Ying were imperial bodyguards, you're saying that they're Manchu. That's it. That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And they were.
yeah,
And so obviously the social stigma was attached. So they're lucky they didn't get killed in Beijing
yeah,
because it was Beijing. Because, for example, in Fuzhou over there, they all got killed. And in
In
Xi'an, it was
Xi'an, they were
massacred. They were like
massacred. Yeah,
bloodshed. They just destroyed them. Fujian, Xi'an, Guangzhou was a little bit better, but still, they were hunting them down. They knew who they were.
yeah,
And those guys were not just, when they're training, what they did, they trained not kind of all year round, but they had cycles, which is kind of preserved in this athletic system that I'm doing,
yeah,
right? In the winter they did certain things, in the summer they did certain things, and mainly it was fall, spring, and winter. In the summer when it was too hot, they didn't do much because it's impossible.
yeah,
It's too hard. So, but when they trained in the fall and the winter, they would train all day long. Shoot the bows, pull the bows, lift stones, swing halberd, do other things. Many other, whatever it's called, yin gong nowadays,
yeah,
right? All this apparatus like iron balls
yeah,
and many like shuaijiao apparatus and other things too. That also we have in Mantis as well. They did that, like the whole strict regimen of training, right? When they're done training, they would go eat. They would go eat, and what do they do when they eat? They get drunk. They get shit-faced, right? And after that, they go outside, say in Fuzhou, right? And they beat living crap out of Han
yeah. That
people,
actually happened too
right?
often. There was even
And
there was even
yeah,
imperial edicts that were coming down, what they called memorials that were coming down to
exactly.
specific banner garrisons, telling them to stop this bullying of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
local Han
Exactly,
population. Yeah,
exactly, exactly. So what happened in 1911 when the local population took over? By violence.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
it. They killed them all. They tried to kill them all, as many as possible. That's what happened. And obviously, what did those guys did? They took pride of what they learned, and they didn't want to teach anyone. But there were a group of people that those wrestlers, right? They moved to, like, my system comes from Tianjin, not from Beijing.
yeah,
In Beijing, it didn't survive in this entirety, right? It's like Shuaijiao guys do that, circus guys do some
yeah,
of those things, but but even the circus guys like Zhang Shaojie, his teacher, though he has family tradition going on, halberd he learned from my grand teacher from Tianjin,
Yeah.
Xie. And what happened is, so when this whole thing disappeared, right? By why Tianjin? Because all Jinyu comes from Tianjin. Everything comes from there, right? Why MCA first traveled to Tianjin? All these missionaries transmitting, teaching those Western values to Chinese people. The Chinese people wanted to have a counter
Yeah, they wanted their own
side,
version
right?
of this Western
Right.
sporting culture.
Their own version,
Yeah.
exactly. They had their own club, athletic club, and they did. So they gathered together all those guys, all these ex uh, uh, military officials and guys who train and taught, and got together into a group and then start training.
Yeah.
And we were absolutely lucky that the whole system made it all the way to
Yeah, of
nowadays.
course.
It's almost disappeared. At this point, it's almost disappeared. In the entire China, like if people are still swinging those halberds around, like here in Shandong, was part of our school too. But stone-wise, the whole country, as far as I know, based on that system, right? Not just lifting, right? Lifting like the figure skating,
Yeah.
so-called, with stones, right? Like the old system with manuals written down, the names of the moves and the rhyme poems attached to every single move. That thing is to people that train based on that system. It's my teacher, his brother, system Kung Fu brother call him, right?
Yeah.
Me and that's it. And the people that I teach online.
Yeah.
That's about it. Nobody else. Because it's impossible. Halbert's a little bit more popular, but not really. It's all disappeared.
Yeah, it's
all
not
those
so
guys,
common.
like in the
It's
60s,
not so common.
The youngest are like in their 50s.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not so common.
Exactly. But it is part of the whole, old Kung Fu training.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
it.
right.
So those guys carried it in the 20th century and didn't die out. And in fact, the first Chinese weightlifting champions came from their association. The guys who went to Moscow in 1957, there was called Universiade, friendship games
Right.
in Moscow of socialist countries, and they actually beat some world records in lightweight weightlifting. Those guys were trained with traditional stones, halberds, and stone barbells.
Okay.
And one of those guys became very, very famous in China at the time in the 50s and 60s. He beat all kinds of records and eventually became a coach of G9 weightlifting team.
Okay.
He just passed away recently. Yeah. So those guys have those traditional foundation in old athletic system of Qin Dynasty. That's how it survived. That's it.
Well, that's very good.
So,
well, it's very interesting. It's also very good that you're promoting that and can try to keep it alive and push it forward. So, I mean, these are important things. I mean, I'm not a Mantis practitioner, but I'm hugely interested in your research.
But this thing doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter what style you do.
No, I know.
Everybody.
No, I mean about your research and all of that history. I'm hugely interested to read that. And like you said, the physical athletic conditioning system, of course, that will help any martial artist. That's why
absolutely
it's something that's become a little bit muddy in the modern Chinese martial arts environment. You even have people saying as so far as to like, no, you can't use any strength and no, don't pick anything up. It just wasn't like this before, I mean, it's just
absolutely.
It's so counterintuitive to any logical human being's way of thinking. To say something like that is as absurd as saying you should only pick up heavy things and don't do other things. I mean, come on, I mean, it's absurd, this mentality. So
absolutely. And that's that putting that win the civil things above war martial is ridiculous. It's been part of China's problem for centuries, right? But in the 20th century, it just took a wrong turn, especially in Wushu and Chinese martial arts.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I could talk to you for hours. We've already spoken for about 2 hours. Maybe we can do a follow-up in the future. If there's...
Yes, definitely. I would be happy.
Yeah, is there anything you wanted to say that you didn't say, or is there any... I mean, if people are looking to contact you, what's the best way for people to get in contact to see either what you do or, if they want to contact you directly?
It's Facebook, Tang, my Facebook page.
Okay.
In China, it's WeChat, I guess.
Well,
maybe through you, I don't know.
what we can do is we'll put the links to whatever methods you want there. I don't think put your WeChat. I'm not going to put your WeChat publicly, but we'll put your Chong Tang there. People.
Tang would work. Yeah, that would be the best.
And if there's anything else you think of, we can put it in there too. We'll put it in the show notes too, and then whoever is interested in getting in contact, they will do that.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great chatting with you. Hopefully
absolutely.
Yeah, in the new year you're able to come through to Beijing and we'll get together. So.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's keep our fingers crossed, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right.
Thank you for talking.
No,
to me.
it's been my pleasure, and we'll chat soon. You keep well there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you too.
Bye bye.
Okay. Take care.